I'm here with Theresa Cheung. We're talking about premonition, precognition, mysticism, and the potential for materialistic scientific understanding of those phenomena. Thanks for joining me, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a real pleasure. Can you explain to me, firstly, and to obviously our listeners, what it is you do?
I collect stories from people who've had afterlife experiences, unusual things happening in their life they can't explain rationally, and I give them a voice. I've been doing this about 15 years. Before that, I was born into a family of psychics and spiritualists, so I had a very unusual travelling background. Was home educated myself, somehow landed a place at King's College, Cambridge to read theology. I think I was a kind of a poster girl for poverty at the time when I went there, because you can imagine from the background I was going into a place with Etonians.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sussex.
Whereabouts?
In Selsey, which is near Chichester. And my mother was Indonesian and my father was disabled. So that's the kind of where I came from. And then to suddenly land in this place with so much privilege was terrifying. I was about the only girl at the time as well. This was in the 80s. And I felt a tremendous sense of responsibility. But I've always had this calling towards spirit and learning about it. And that's what I was able to do at university.
What do you mean, a calling towards spirit?
I've always seen beyond the material. I think I did have anorexia when I was from about 12 onwards. And I think that is a kind of a rejection of the material already. So I've
in your case, or do you think perhaps more generally?
I think actually any form of addiction is a seeking for higher meaning. And in some ways I'm very grateful that I had that, because I had it very young and I was able to work through it myself. And the only way I could work through it was by finding a higher meaning. That there had to be more than this life in the physical. Because if you look at anorexia, it is a rejection of the body. You don't like the physical body that you're in. So you want to be outside of it. So I was just drawn to spirit. Also, my mother...
Is it that? I'm very interested in anorexia. I'm interested in addiction. I had some difficulties with eating in my personal case when I was adolescent. But it kind of transitioned into drug addiction, which for me was a better fit for my neurosis. It was more on the nose. But I feel like were drugs and alcohol not available, I might have persisted with eating problems. Curiously, in fact, when I was in treatment and I got clean, I started to make myself sick again, even though I was like 27.
Bulimia, yes, yeah.
Yeah, precisely. So this idea of rejection of the body... We illustrate that more. What do you just mean, like denying yourself nutrition?
Well, fasting is a part of many religions for a start, and for a reason, I suppose, is to focus the mind. And you've got to think, in times past, somebody who could deny themselves food, as I could do when I was younger for weeks on end, would have been regarded almost as religious in those days. And I do think that when you're denying yourself food, you are crying out for a sense of meaning and purpose. And I was able to find that through the study, first of all with Christianity. I found Christianity partly because my mother was a nun before she had me, obviously.
Blimey, yeah, because otherwise, sister, can we have a word?
Well, that's why she left, I think. But that's another story. But it was so I first of all, Christianity. It was like, I get this. There's more to this life than just right here. Now, it wasn't enough for me, the material, the career, the marriage. Everybody said, you'll just get married, have children, have a career. I just didn't want that. I wanted something more. There had to be more meaning. But I looked for it externally in religion, and I think that's the first stage of when you're developing. First of all, you have this stage of being, when you're just but then you want to become something. And I tried to become something through being Christian. I actually took some time to consider my options myself.
What do you mean?
Spent time in contemplation to think if that was the life for me, if I wanted to be a nun. But
Did you?
I was very tempted. There's part of me that's even tempted now to
go...
What
bits of it do you like, being a nun?
I guess it's the escape.
Yeah, like,
Life's
right,
tough.
This didn't work, I'm going into this
Yeah,
abbey
it's an
or
escape.
nunnery.
Emotions are messy. Life is tough. There's so much cruelty. I'm a very sensitive person. I react very much to cruelty. Like sometimes I can't watch the news or the media. any kind of cruelty to people, particularly animals. I will literally spend days crying. So in a way...
When was the last time that happened, and
Facebook,
what was it?
Well, it's why one of the reasons I've stopped going onto Facebook now, and I have my lovely publicist Lindsay, who brought me here, Lindsay Mayhew, helps me run it, is that the images of animal cruelty on there just... I just see it.
Someone's blown out a birthday cake, some people on a holiday, someone's dinner,
dog without
kitten
ears.
being booted into a river. Oh no, don't show that one. What was the last thing you saw that was animal cruelty that made you cry?
I'm going to cry now because
just remembering it.
It was a dog who'd had its ears slashed off because it lost in a fight, and I love dogs, and I'm getting emotional.
Where did you see that?
It was on Facebook, and they don't ban these images, but I understand why people circulate them because they want to raise awareness. But it upset me terribly. So I'm very highly sensitive. But what I found is that highly sensitive people, they tend to be quite spiritual as well, and the way for them to find meaning is to seek spiritual meaning, as it were. And I tried to seek that first of all in religion. As I said, I was very committed Christian. Obviously, I read theology at Cambridge. But as I was at Cambridge, I was introduced to all the other world religions, and it was almost like a road to Damascus moment. I was in the old dusty library at Cambridge, a ray of light hit me, and I realised that every religion is a path to the truth. But that was just one stage. After that, I began to realise that being spiritual, you don't necessarily have to be religious, and that's when I started my writing career. I started to collect stories from people who were the same as me, who were very, very spiritual, but not necessarily religious, who were very, very sensitive and wanted to be givers and helpers, but found the world quite a difficult place to be in. They're highly sensitive people. And they believe that actually about 1 in 7 people are like that. There's a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, which is a really amazing read. And in times past, I suppose people like ourselves who are drawn to the spiritual would have been the shamans, the healers. There would have been a place in society, but today there's no place in society for people who are like that, who want to talk about love and the power of kindness, and that maybe there's more to this life that meets the eye, or there's life after this. There's no place for people like that, particularly in the UK. For some reason, my soul placed me in the UK, which tends to be very, very cynical. As I said, most of my sales are abroad. I'm translated into like over 40 languages now. I have a lot of fan mail from overseas. But here in the UK, we're very, very cynical about
Although, of course, this is a very spiritual little island, Albany, the land of Arthurian myth and legend.
Yeah.
Sometimes I love this country very much.
Oh,
the land and actually the people. I suppose perhaps post-colonially this has become a place of trade and commerce and incredible dominion and domination. But somewhere there is still like a sort of a mythic... There's a sort of a mythic beauty.
Oh, the Arthur legend, it's beautiful, the magic. And a part of me would just like to escape into that realm. I'd like to go back to the land of the time before Christianity, even where the goddess was worshipped and all that, the magic, the druid. We are a very mystical nation, but it's being hidden at the moment. But what I'm seeing from the mail I get is that there's this urge within people to express their spirituality, but it's considered ridiculous. I mean, the hate mail I get as well.
What? You get hate mail?
Oh, my goodness.
Don't open it. Hello.
Well, you can't. No, when you go...
I hate you. I hate you.
Well, they think of this silly...
Best wishes, Clive.
No, but they do. I mean, I was always an invisible writer because I very much live what I preach. I used to think that if you're a spiritual writer, people find your book when they're ready, right? You shouldn't be pushing. I mean, I even feel comfortable here with having the books on the table. It's not who I am. I don't like it. I think spirituality is something people must find when they're ready. I suppose it's like you with your life. You went through a massive journey and then you found it when you were ready. If somebody had said to your 20-year-old self all the truths that you're learning now, would you have listened? You had to go through that.
I don't think I'd have listened to anything they said. I was very, very busy.
I know.
They could have said anything other than your hair looks great would have not have penetrated my aura of carefully cultivated narcissism.
Are you still struggling with that?
The narcissism?
That's a mental disorder now. That it's about...
But you could be so bloody interested in your haircut that you can't focus on the world.
What narcissism is the death of empathy, isn't it? And I think that's what's happening.
I don't think I've got that. No, I don't think I've got narcissism in that sense. I mean more in the mythic kind of like sort of looking in your reflection and being sort of fascinated and lost in kind of, God, I can't believe I'm an actual person like that person in the mirror, and it kind of vacillating between a kind of a loathing and a sort of an odd kind of infatuation. So if in fact, you know, you can apply to the condition of anorexia its potential of being a sort of a self-imposed just an annihilation of the body, a rejection of nurture,
wanting to be pure spirit,
then possibly all mental illnesses are sort of an essential quest to find a truth not catered for by conventional rational materialistic systems. So through that, the narcissism, I think it's sort of like am I really here? What is this? How come I'm wedded to this anatomical structure?
Yeah, and it doesn't bring joy, does it? It doesn't bring you the joy and fulfillment. I mean, it's all very exciting, but it doesn't bring you that deep peace.
Deep joy and peace.
Although it's very tempting. I mean...
Is that what you think we're after, Teresa? Deep joy and peace?
No, I think we're here to learn. And sometimes learning hurts. There's wisdom through pain. And because I get the mail I get is from people, often they're going through terrible times in their life. They've lost a child, or they've been with someone 30 years, the love of their life has died, and what do I do now with the rest of my... That's the kind of mail I get, and it breaks my heart because there's no one else they can write to.
Well, there is.
That they seem to write to me, and it's lovely that they do, but it's nowhere to go to talk, because if they go to a doctor, they just get a pill, an antidepressant. Counselling has its limitations. A lot of people want that sense of connection to spirit, and my dream, that's why the work I'm doing now, is to work with scientists to, and to actually one day have scientifically validated mediums, psychics, healers, working alongside people to help them cope through these awful life crises. Because let's face it, people read my books when they're unhappy. I mean, they don't tend to read them when they're feeling great. They read them because their life has lost all sense of meaning and hope. And I write back to every single person I do. That's I spend most
even
of my
the hate mail. Yeah. I absolutely hate you. Love, Clive.
Yeah, but they hate
Clive,
me for a reason.
I was flattered to receive your hate mail. I don't know, it's just, it seems like the name
He's
I would
somebody in your
have.
life, right? Nothing's random. Why did you bring
Nothing's
Clive?
random?
Yeah, I don't
Nothing's
think so.
random?
I think that everything...
What about that? What about this pen? Is that random? What about this?
No, nothing. I believe that there is a tapestry and
of meaning behind things.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, everything's a pattern. I get that. There's a
Well,
great
it's like
big
the underside
explosion.
of a
Everything's
tapestry,
moving
right?
outward.
There's all knots and loose ends, right?
I don't. When I see a tapestry, Teresa, I don't immediately flip behind it and have a look at the other side. You'll get thrown out of the museum.
Russell, that's this life. Is the underside. In heaven or the afterlife or spirit is when you turn it over and you see the bigger picture. And I think that's what spirit is, when we connect to our higher self. That is this part of us that sees the bigger picture.
I like this analogy that possibly the sensory realm is limited to the frequencies upon which it is broadcast.
Yes.
And your interest is in the liminal spaces that are not necessarily entirely
understood. The invisible
understood.
and the unseen, the possibility of magic. For some reason now people just want to say magic doesn't exist, that it's not possible for our spirits to survive death, and all that, and all the books I've done, because I'm a bit of a serial writer. I've written so many books, it's ridiculous. I've written over 100 books.
Get lost, you've not read 100.
I have 2 a year. I do. I'm very blessed.
Bloody hell, mate, you're churning them out.
They all took me on. Schuster, HarperCollins, Random, all of them. This is just the latest in what I'm doing. But
let's talk about what we think is important here, Teresa.
Okay.
You're very interested in precognition, like the powers of the intuition, the non-rational, non-materialistic activity of consciousness.
That's just one
aspect. One aspect. And you're also interested in the journey of consciousness beyond material death.
Yes.
Now, but the area you're moving into is trying to underwrite these ideas scientifically. What success have you had? Give us some good examples of that, because I think that's what people want.
Well, the science.
Give us some examples of where the science and the mysticism wed together in ways that will help rational people to sort of go, okay, maybe.
Well, I'm not a scientist, so forgive me if I can't use...
Well, clearly not. I've written 100 books called things like Dragons from Space. That was a joke.
All right.
Comedy.
No,
I'm a comedian.
I know. But it's wonderful that you have that, and now you can be a voice for something more meaningful. Anyway, that's the trouble with you. You're such a big personality. It's very hard to stay focused. Okay, focus now, Teresa. Okay. What was the question, Russell?
Examples of where the mysticism and the science coalesce, so that people looking at this from a skeptical or indeed cynical perspective can go, oh, yeah, that does sound good.
I can only go from my personal perspective, and then I will bring in my work and what I've done with these great hardcore scientists. I'm now working with them. As I said, I started off, I love writing, that's how I express myself, and I started off being a ghostwriter for lots of celebrities like yourself, but not yourself. But, so I've been in that world, but I always
want about that. This is getting to the science.
Okay,
about ghostwriting for
I know, but I'm just
Ian
trying
Botham.
trying to explain the journey. And then I was given the opportunity to write about spirituality and collect people's stories. So I did that for years and years and years. The criticism I always got is two things. You're not a practitioner. I don't claim to see angels or talk to dead people myself. I don't. I believe in it, and I believe in it as possible. And the second criticism, which you're moving on to now, is where is the science? And I used to say to them, well, it's just a matter of belief. People who have faith, you don't need proof. But that was becoming increasingly a weak argument. So about a couple of years ago, I decided I was going to put myself on the line. I was going to reach out to some scientists who are actually studying this. And it blew my mind.
Go on. Who are they good?
Well, the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the States with Dr. Dean Radin is the lead scientist
Noetic? What does
Noetic
that mean?
means, that's fantastic. It's the inner world. No, inner world. They study, these are scientists.
How do I spell that, Noetic? Is there a G in the beginning?
Noetic.
Noetic, the inner world.
Yeah, it's actually that institute was the inspiration for Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol. And I reached out to them thinking, they're going to ignore me because I'm just a writer who talks about angels and psychic animals and all that. And they were very welcoming. And I said, I want to do something to help you get your research out there, because their research was making waves in scientific journals, what they were doing. Research into the afterlife, research into channeling, research into precognition, all these kind of things. And I said, I want to do something to help you get your message out there, because what people don't realize is this research is all hidden. It's repressed. The scientific community doesn't want it particularly to get out there.
What bit of research specifically is being hidden that would change the perspectives of people that are cynical about mysticism?
Well, first, the research done at two institutions, the Windbridge Institute and the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Now, the Windbridge Institute is studying afterlife communication. Mm-hmm. The research they've done into mediums has given rates of accuracy that has really raised eyebrows. And if people want to check it out, it's the Windbridge Institute. Dr. Julie Beischel, what
did they do?
They basically, Dr. Julie Beischel was a pharmacist. And she was testing drugs, and she thought, what if we test mediums in exactly the same cold clinical way that we test drugs, right? And that's exactly how she set it up.
Double-blind testing.
Exactly, which had never been done before. But I'm not going to do celebrity mediums. I'm going to do mediums who don't necessarily do it for money or for the best-selling book. I'm going to do people who are working in spiritualist churches and do it because it's their vocation, their calling.
Go on. And how many did they get?
Absolutely amazing, about 8 out of 10 accuracy, and there's more research ongoing.
How many were there? How many, this double-blind testing, how many mediums?
I think several thousand. As I said, I'm not a scientist.
They found several thousand mediums. They did double-blind testing and sort of said to, asked them what's on the other side of that wall or what's going to happen to this person.
And the accuracy was astonishing. Another study that was done was by the Institute of Noetic Sciences, where they had photographs of people who are alive and people who are dead. And they asked the mediums to accurately say who was still with us in human form and who was still with us in spirit, and the results were amazing. So this kind of research is going on. However,
Lady Diana, Winston Churchill.
No, there were people that you couldn't tell.
Joking.
No, so, I know. There's that study. There's, of course, Dr. Dean Radin, his very complicated double slit experiment, which you need a book to describe. I'm not a scientist. I'm a theologian.
I know. Don't keep going saying you're not a scientist. I know you're not a scientist, and you mustn't worry about that. Yeah. We can get scientists. They're 10 a penny. They're wandering around. Outside there now, there's people doing experiments on mice that would bend your bones just out in the street.
The biggest research that I've highlighted in this book, my latest book, which is with Dr. Julia Mossbridge, who's from the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Now, she's a fascinating lady because she studies the reality of precognition. And she has proved through...
Like intuiting something?
No, sensing the future before it happens. seeing the future. And we have in this book all the very latest research into precognition. Do you want to pick your grade up?
Not really.
No.
A bit, but not enough.
I could tell though.
Tell
that
me,
you
it's too much admin. But give me the example of the someone seeing into the future that has been demonstrably proven.
At the moment,
because like him, Mulder or Scully, whoever it is at the X-Files, I want to believe. But in this interview, there's no point in me, like the two of us sitting here like a couple of little kittens purring about ghosts and tunnels of light, or wildly misinterpreting the findings of the double slit experiment, which quantum physicists, they're very protective over that and what is and the potentialities and stuff. So but I do agree that the material world is but one tiny strata of ultimate reality. How could it be otherwise? So give us some good examples of this future seeing stuff that's in this particular book, the Premonition Code.
Dr. Mossbridge, she's the science in the book, so it's a very unusual combination between a mystic and a hardcore scientist. And
bit like X-Files.
It is. Anyway, Dr. Mossbridge is studying, along with Dr. Radin, presentiment, which is basically the body sensing something happening before it does. And they would show cards to people. Some of the cards would have images of scary things happening, and others would have images of comforting things happening. And before the cards were shown, they were able to show, with wiring them up, that the body could sense 8 out of 10 times with accuracy when an alarming image was going to come before it happened. And that is at the moment when people say, where is precognition research? It's in the body. And I can know that for myself. I've had, for example, there was a meeting and I had to send a text about a meeting, and my hand started to uncontrollably shake before I sent the text, and the meeting was a disaster and everything. Things like that. The body has an innate awareness of the future before we have, and that is where science at the moment is finding it very exciting, the research into precognition, and that's what this book is talking about, your bodily awareness of something happening before it happens.
Like kind of kinesiology, like the intuitive intelligence of the body, which is sort of used somewhat to determine and diagnose potential allergies. You think that there's an intelligence in the body that can be utilised? There is an intelligence in the body.
That's something that we need to tune into, and that's one of the exercises we do.
So what work have they done to track this intelligence in the body that's demonstrated here?
Well, they keep on doing studies into it, and each time the studies are more encouraging. I mean, you could ask, are they not biased, these scientists studying it? That's what I asked. But no, they're not, because first and foremost, they're scientists, right? And they will report if an experiment is inaccurate. They have to, because they're scientists before they're believers or non-believers.
I suppose there's like bias in all science. If it's sort of funded by pharmaceuticals or if it's funded by corporations, that it's likely that the findings will be favourable. Bias is sort of a necessary component of all narrativized research. But that doesn't mean that we'll be sort of sceptical about this research. We're talking about an area that's really, really interesting.
The science is there. That's what I want to know. And this book is to show people the science is there. And everybody, and I'm sure there will be comments on this, about James Randi. You heard about the James Randi Prize.
No.
James Randi? Well, he was a magician who set up a prize decades ago, saying, I'll offer £1 million to anyone who can prove to me
anything.
Psychic powers are real. And that I have had that thrown in my face so many times. If what you write about is real, Teresa, and not just a figment of your imagination or wishful thinking, why has nobody ever won the James Randi Prize? Yeah. Right? Because he did. And loads of psychics went up and they all failed. And he was basically, that was always considered proof that psychic powers...
He was a right old Grinch, wasn't he, James Randi? My name's James Randi. I'm setting up a prize to expose the lies of the psychic community.
He stalked Uri Geller.
I'm stalking Uri
He did,
Geller.
because he wanted to prove that Uri Geller was
what have you done to my spoons?
Yeah, he basically, wherever Uri Geller went, James Randi. There was a very brilliant film.
He should have been... James Randi sounds like a real pest. Were it not for his lovely surname, I think I'd lose all sympathy for him.
He wrote the film about him, An Honest Liar. Actually, I really recommend it. It's brilliant. You actually see he's actually a very kind, sensitive person. He's a truth seeker like everyone else. He's just trying to find his truth. But nobody's ever won that prize. So in this book, we decided we were going to set up our own scientifically controlled experiment global into the reality of precognition. And that's what we set up on www.thepremonitioncode.com.
How did it go?
It's just starting to running. We're getting about 500 to 1,000 hits a day. of people doing the scientifically controlled exercises there.
Yeah.
And we're going to see, because what happens if we were very much inspired by the movie Minority Report, Precog, you know.
They were sat in that room. And also, what about John Ronson's The Men Who Stare at Goats? Like, John Ronson's looked into the American military's research into psychic phenomena, didn't he?
Well, actually, I do know Uri Geller. I've been round to his house and I'm in touch with. He's a friend.
He's not far from here, is he?
He's in Israel now. But the reason I brought him up, there was a reason, is that he was involved with the CIA and they tested him. And some of the studies done on him, for example, there's an experiment, he was put in a room and they asked him to draw what was on the other side. And he drew a bunch of grapes, and it was a bunch of grapes. Now, you could say it's guesswork. Hold on a minute,
we've got grapes in here. Yuri, you've done it again!
But he said that the George Clooney character in the film was based on the research done on Uri Geller. He was asked to go into a room and there was a pig there, and they said, we want you to try and stop the pig's heart with your mind. And, you know, whether you believe it or not, I don't know.
I can't imagine that Uri Geller would have been up for that, would he?
I think he'd be up for quite a lot.
It's not kosher. Get me something else to kill with my mind.
But they were actually thinking of doing that. I mean, you actually see photographs of him at very key moments in American history. Actually, it's quite interesting. I mean, his life is fascinating. He is a fascinating example of I don't know what, but you know, somebody who could just bend spoons to become world famous. There's some magic there, isn't there?
Yeah, it is actually.
But he was
actually, thinking about it now, I met him a few times, and he was lovely. I just
very
remembered
sweet
that.
guy. Yes.
Yeah, he was nice. I remember Uri Geller now. Hold a sec. So, look, none of us dispute that there are limitless realms of consciousness inaccessible unless you are willing to undertake certain rituals or take certain psychedelics. We live perhaps in a time where many people are becoming disappointed with the limitations of the material world. Many people are becoming disappointed with the solutions being offered by our existing structures, so primarily our existing social structures and our existing belief structures. But I feel for us to make realistic, meaningful headway, we have to sort of find some interim language that can help people access spirituality, that won't make them balk at spirituality. I feel like this being a podcast that primarily that people that listen to this may be discerning, somewhat circumspect, but I sense a real hunger in people for something more, for more meaning, for purpose, for a life that has ambitions that extend beyond materialistic goals prescribed by a materialistic society. So what do you think, Teresa, are the next steps we can take in helping people to access this information?
I would love it to be taught at school.
How would that be?
Just to have a lesson on what really matters in life, what the true meaning of life is. I mean, you're taught so much at school that is totally irrelevant, and to just be taught these things, that you are more than your thoughts and your feelings. You can step outside them, you can observe yourself, you can that what really matters in life. And I don't think that that's being taught in schools, about how to manage life. People just go out there so totally unprepared, especially the younger generation today with social media. I mean, social media has some great things about it, but it's made everybody so narcissistic, as you say, and materialistic, and it makes me cry, because people write to me wanting answers and wanting hope, because there's nobody ever told them. Because we used to go to religion, didn't we? That's where at least religion had many faults, but at least it gave us some moral guidelines and structure. Now that's off the cards for the majority of people.
I think there's some quite funny things then, like with the moral guidelines. Don't be gay. For a
True, but it gave some kind of
Here's
reference.
A moral guideline. Don't be gay.
No, that's Christianity. I know. I
know what you mean. Like I am of the same view. As a matter of fact, that my belief is be quick to see where religious people are right. Yeah. You know, we all know where they're wrong with the extremism, the radicalism, the bigotry, and the misogyny, and the patriarchy, etc. But where are they right? Oneness, kindness, love, the possibility of realizing different frequencies of consciousness and how that will lead to different types of behavior. But in a sense, the problems are not problems of religion, but problems of the way that we organize structures, the way that power operates. Most religions ultimately get bent into structures that manipulate and control people. But the original ideas get somewhat lost in that. So if we are to provide new ways of accessing spirituality, love, connection, I wonder how we firstly avoid the problems of conventional religion, i.e. obsession with power, the cult of personality, subjugation, domination, etc. But also I feel like one of the problems is going to be is we can't, wind the clock back on post-enlightenment thinking and materialistic rationalism. So that's what you're interested in, is trying to underwrite scientifically phenomena that is mysterious. And yet, as you say, the cynics will recite that no one has won the Randy Prize, although I had a good go from the 1998 to 2010. That's quite a good joke, the Randy Prize.
I get it.
Thanks very much, Teresa. So I'm holding here your book, The Premonition Code. Now, what do you think in particular within this book are useful? There's an experiment here. It says this one, there's one here for, for testing your own sort of psychic powers.
Oh, yes, that's in conjunction with the website, but it is scientifically controlled, because the books I've done before have always been like... follow your intuition, interpret your dreams, tap into your feelings, all that. But we haven't had anything with hardcore science in it. So we're going to work with the website. There's 6 steps that you go through in the websites, because what you're going to do is you're going to precognitively sense an image that's going to randomly be selected by the computer.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the people who score higher than chance will earn a place in our Hall of Fame.
Is higher than chance 50-50 or?
Oh, no, at least 80%. It would be at least 8%. The people who
chance could be 80% right. You could be 80% right by chance.
It's so difficult because there are thousands of images in that computer that it could be. And the people that are scoring higher will enter our Hall of Fame and eventually can earn themselves the title a scientifically validated precog. And the scientists would like to study these people to see about the powers of the brain. The same thing is happening. I did with a previous book of mine.
Have you done it?
I haven't.
You don't claim to have these.
I wish I do. There's
powers.
Some writers, in our movement, who do say that they can see angels and speak to dead people, and I can't say that I have powers that I haven't.
It's a shame. I'd love some of those, wouldn't you? The siddhis, they're called in yogic terms. Levitation. Delving into different realms of reality.
But it's interesting, actually, being a writer in this realm, how you're kind of forced into pretending you've got that. And that's why it's so dangerous. There are so many frauds in this industry, because say you've had an intuitive hunch and it's proved correct, and then you write a book about or an article about it, and everybody wants you to be psychic. It's like everybody wants someone to follow. And that's, I think, must be happening with you at the moment. I think you could, with your status, doesn't it not the power go to your head? I mean, if you say something, people listen and would follow you. People want someone to follow, but always with my books, people asking me to demonstrate these powers, to bless them or whatever. And I always say, no, you must have be your own guru.
I carry out blessings whenever requested.
Yeah, but
someone wants a blessing, I dish it right out.
But it must
only
be
love, isn't it? A blessing. Like someone goes, give us a blessing. I go, like,
but
bang,
the people who follow you love you. And love is in short supply in this world. And you may be the only person that they do really love. And you're awakening that within them. I think you're quite
close to saying the only person that can solve this riddle, Russell.
Is Russell Brand. So
isolate that, we've got it, right.
No, but what I'm saying, in a way, as long as it doesn't go to your head, which I'm sure it won't, because you learn, I'm
really trying to, my level best, Theresa Cheung, to transcend as best I can my egoic limitations, but it's difficult, of course, because the place from which I perceive them are them. So what
like
I'm
Saul,
trying to do is, I'm not like Saul.
Paul, he became,
I'm
road to
not
Damascus.
like, if anything, the road to Dagenham. Yeah, he was all right, wasn't he?
But was there a moment when you just like, aha?
It's constantly aha. Mm-hmm. For example, Take On Me, the video where it was a little... Oh, you're so sweet, aren't you? What an open-hearted woman you are. Yeah, I would say that my life is riddled with epiphany. Like that, I'm continually
But you're going to
thinking,
addicted to the epiphany now.
Oh, I can't get enough. I mean, exactly. I am very addicted. And I agree to a point with your analysis that forms of it. I'm careful when talking about anorexia, because I know so many people that are so severely affected by eating disorders and drug addiction that I don't ever want to say anything that makes their sometimes people feel that a medical and scientific approach is like a necessary protocol. Do you know what I mean? Like it's respectful. But I do feel that many mental health conditions are experienced as a result of a lack of a spiritual framework, which we possibly can even distill down to love, that we need different kinds of love. But like, I'm not suggesting that people who've got relatives that have got anorexia, they've not loved them. It's just like people are looking for a different type of connection.
I think the foundation is self-love. That's the first thing I think people with addictions it's struggling.
So how did you get through that? You earlier on when we're talking about your anorexia, sorry to talk over you, Teresa, I apologise for that. How did you get through that anorexia and to a point of self-love? Was there any Damascene moments for you?
Finding a meaning.
I'm going to get that grape.
Good. Are you going to eat it?
It's a blueberry.
It's dirty, you know.
Don't be ridiculous dirty.
I'm sure
it grew out of a tree.
I know, but you
came out of nothingness and burst into blueberry.
It was a moment, I write about this in my books actually, it was a shaft of sunlight.
Go on.
A shaft of sunlight hit me and I wanted
to live.
Where
were you?
I was at home and I just got up and I went to the window and the sun hit me and it was so beautiful. And this sounds...
There's nothing wrong with that.
And it was as simple as that and I wanted to live. It was a slow progress.
Before that you sort of felt like you wanted to die.
Oh, yes. But then maybe we talk about, inheriting things. My mother attempted suicide. So most of my life was spent outside a therapist hearing my mother crying. So that's the difficult thing to grow up with,
Did you have siblings?
Sorry?
Siblings?
My mother.
Do you have siblings? Was there someone go, bloody hell, mum's depressed? Or were you on your own?
I have a brother, yes. Yes.
So you spent a lot of time listening to your mother's dissatisfaction with material life, with familial life.
Yes. And just, of course, she was a nun as well. So there was a lot of pain, and I think you inherit that pain. And I think as we go through the generations...
She was like a Christian nun in Indonesia, some mission.
No. She was in Indonesia, then the Japanese sent her her family into concentration camps, and being a child, she was put on a ship into Holland and...
Bloody hell.
A very traumatic life. She was shook because she was shot at, but she was just one story. That generation had a tough time. The war savaged lives, destroyed families, and she married, my father was disabled and autistic. So that's not an easy...
What was going on? What do you mean disabled and autistic?
He was born, he was crushed in the room, and so he was... disabled, and could never work because of that. And
is he alive, your father?
No, they're both past, my parents. But they have visited me in dreams, and I've had better conversations with them in dreams than...
What do you think that is? Do you think when you dream like that about someone that's passed over, do you feel like it's an aspect of your own consciousness that was connected to them, or do you think that it is a visitation from their essence?
There are two types of dream. There are symbolic dreams, which is a bit like your in-house therapist, which is advising you on your life, where everything in your dream, like that movie Inception, my favourite movie, when everybody stares at the dreamer. Yeah. It's fantastic, isn't it? The dream world is so brilliant, where you get advice and guidance about issues in a symbolic language. However, there are certain dreams, a rare category of dreams, which I call night visions, which are so realistic that they fall into the category, I believe, of an afterlife visitation. And if you speak to mediums or whatever, dreams are the very first way that the departed will try subtly and gently to communicate with us, and just allow that communication to happen, because it can be very, very comforting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because in this world, there is so much cynicism, skepticism, materialism and pain. And yet every night, most people disappear off into some world of wonder without question, where the dead can visit you, where your ego roams freely, where your id romps about madly.
It's brilliant, the world of dreams. And I think we die every night. And there's actually a tribe, which doesn't sleep. Tries not to sleep, they just nap, because they say when you sleep...
have a nap, but no sleep.
The Para tribe, I think, and they're one of the happiest...
I'm knackered, get up!
But they believe that when you go to sleep, actually, your old self dies. And when you wake up, you're reborn. And they refer...
I think they're right, this tribe, because don't you sometimes wake up and think, there's a bit where you go, I don't know who I am, actually, and then you go, you're Russell, now put your hat on. It takes a little while to reassemble who you are. And sometimes you think, I might not bother, I'll stay as this guy.
They only nap. And if they do fall asleep...
They only nap.
I mean, if they're knackered and they fall asleep for 8 hours, they call themselves by a different name. They rename themselves. It's a new...
You're a new you.
Yeah.
Where are they? I like
the
this.
The Para tribe, if you look it up, P-I...
South America. They've got to be Latin American, aren't they?
And there's another tribe called the Senoia Tribe, where dream interpretation is central, that children from the age of 3 or 4 are encouraged in the morning to sit down. The first thing they do is they dissect their dreams. Because the idea is that if you can control your dream life...
But do you think a person can analyse their own dreams? Because isn't it you're trying to analyse it with the analytical tool? Isn't it a bit like a serpent eating its own tail? I mean, when other people tell me their dreams, I think I have a understanding symbolically of what it means. And this already has crossed into the realm of science. You know, Jungian and Freudian analysis is dependent on that. And Joseph Campbell, of course, says that myths are public dreams, dreams are private myths, that there's a language of dreams that's demonstrable all over the world. Of course, whilst there may be some symbols that are personal, while there may be some motifs that are residual from the day's activity, there does seem to be sort of a common alphabet of dream imagery. And of course, you've written an encyclopedia of dreams there, haven't you? And I like this idea that when you get up in the morning, you just go, right, well, but my dreams, they're too amorphous and crazy, Teresa, to like analyse properly.
Tell me one of your dreams.
You get lost on a podcast. They're actually crackers. Now, hold on. All right. Well, this was a good one. I went away to... This isn't a dream. This is reality, this bit.
What was
I went away
dream? You're going to say...
Well, I'll give you context.
Okay.
Right, my duvet, it smelt of Lenore. But we went to my wife's, her parents' house, right? Yes. And we stayed there, and I had this really, and I was going through lots of sort of social and professional divorce-like activity, right? Where a lot of relationships were ending with a lot of people that I've been very embedded and possibly, to use a codependent word, enmeshed with, right? And then I dreamt that night that I had this very like a lot of my dreams do not feel optimistic. There's quite a lot of fear, I think, in my dreams. Fear and sort of an insipid grey anxiety. But this dream was very vivid, and all of the fields near where I live had been cut into these glorious geometric patterns. I really liked the overview of these geometric shapes cut into the corn, almost like crop circles, but multi-layered and multi-dimensional. Right, and I thought, I like this feeling. I woke up, and when I got back to the house, the harvest had been taken while I'd been gone. So I went, cool, the different realms are colliding in my consciousness, all is good, all is God. So what does that mean?
It's basically field of dreams, isn't it? Possibilities.
I had a field of dreams.
I think when
I'm the new Costner! I will always love you.
When you, oh dear. When you,
come on, tell me.
When your dreams become more calm and optimistic, I think that will help you in your everyday life as well. You need to go to bed set the intention of I will have a wonderful dream. You can program your dreaming mind. Yes, you can. You can actually. Have you ever woken up in a dream, or in your dream where you actually know you're dreaming?
Yeah.
I've done that a couple of times. Oh, it's brilliant. Can fly anywhere, do anything.
I once done a film dream where I was dreaming in the dream, then I woke up in the dream, went, oh, that was a mad dream, and I was still dreaming. Like a film.
So what's the point of dreams? Where are we?
What's going on?
Yeah, where are we? It's that's spirit for me. That's a part of us that is inexplicable, invisible magic, and it's what I've dedicated my life to studying, researching, and collecting people's stories on.
So what do you reckon? After all this research, what do you think how should we be using dreams?
We should be using dreams to inspire and guide our life, and to let us know that there is magic and possibility in everyone and everything. The possibility to realise different worlds using different resources, as in we don't need to repeat the cycles of linear progress, the teleology of normal social life, industrial revolution, technological revolution, improvements in medicine, poor getting poorer, rich getting richer, but the general standard of life's improving, infant mortality's down to... Well, why's everyone so fucking miserable then? If you think that from the realm of dreams we can access information that will radically alter our human experience. Help us. And the thing is, as in anything in life, like the law of attraction, the more you think about dreams, the more likely you are to dream. Same with precognition. Studies have shown that the more people read about precognition, think about it, the more likely they are to experience it. And it's like in any realm of life. Learn about it, fall in love with it, and it will reward you. And I think that's what people are looking for at the moment. What is being offered right now, for especially our young generation, just isn't enough. Even the money, career, fame, it's not enough. They need something more, and I think they could look for more in finding meaning and in helping others and in a sense of magic and possibility.
I agree. Now how do you think these young people can cultivate a sense of meaning?
Cultivate a sense of meaning. Well, first, how? Oh my goodness, big question.
What about, from all these books, are you saying is useful? May I take this back again? Don't give it a little pat like that. How can they cultivate a sense of meaning using some of the stuff that you've learned from your experience?
Well, what you learn is that when you start having more accurate precognitions, for example, you have a dream and it plays out in your daily life, which you can kind of train yourself to do. There are exercises. When that happens, you begin to realize there's more to me, there's more potential to me, there's more about me than the obvious. That is so exciting, and you can start developing that.
How?
First of all, keeping a record of it, tracking your dreams, keep a dream journal. Second, paying attention to the messages that your feelings send you. We stifle our feelings through food, through money, through all sorts of things. Start tuning into your feelings. Those kind
How
of.
do you tune into your feelings?
Let them flow through you. Don't deny them. That's one of the things with spirituality at the moment. It's like, is spirituality always being happy and content all the time? I don't think it is at all. Spirituality is allowing the full human experience to wash over you, because that's why we're here, I believe, to experience everything that we can and to learn and grow through it. And in some lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation, we learn and grow more than others. But that's why we're here, to learn and grow. And feelings are the biggest and greatest teacher. And sometimes they're hard and they're horrible, but that's how we move forward.
So you say that there's lessons in what we feel, even if it's negative feeling, like, say, for example,
Yes.
envy or
feeling
regret
bad can
or
be
something.
good sometimes. Yes.
Go on, give us
feeling
an
bad
example.
can be good, because you start realizing what's really important to you. Because it's a wake-up call, isn't it? Something about my life isn't fulfilling me. That's why I'm feeling bad.
Go on, give us an example.
Well, if you're in a job and you're waking up depressed every morning, there's a big sign, that your job perhaps isn't rewarding and fulfilling, and you need to do something to alter that.
People are a bit afraid to change the job.
Yeah.
So how do you translate these negative feelings into positive action?
Find something you love. Find meaning through something you love. Meaning is what makes us human. If you've read that wonderful book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, when he was in the concentration camps, how do you survive when you're in a concentration camp and you're treated like an animal? And he found meaning through feelings of love for his wife at the time, and through knowing that his spirit could not be captured. And that's how, someone can survive a concentration camp and come out with joy and hope, just having a terrible job.
Yes, this book of Viktor Frankl is obviously a sort of a masterpiece and a great emblem for the power of the spirit. Perhaps the condition of most people lacking the extremity of the horrors of the Holocaust becomes... we face a different type of challenge, in that I feel perhaps people's horizons are being lowered by the drab monotony of an experience determined by consumerism. I feel that most people that don't leave relationships or don't leave jobs is because of a sense of an inability to connect with a positive outcome. I think that there is possibly a lack of hope, that people feel like, well, this is what life is. And I also feel that that we are governed by unconscious behaviours. Now, when we're talking about dreams, no one would query that this is activity of the subconscious or possibly unconscious mind. And most, I feel, people are governed by behaviours to which they are not entirely connected. Like, if you're doing a job that you don't enjoy, you're in a relationship that you don't like. It sometimes takes crisis of some kind before people are willing to address the possibility of change. Now, I wonder if there is a way, as individuals and as a society, that we can preempt or perhaps prevent the possibility of personal crisis and social crisis by tuning into these feelings. It's almost like people need to slow down, and be still and hear what's happening in their heads.
I understand what you're saying, and also we need that sense of crisis sometimes. Somebody put a gun to your head and said, you've got one day to live. And
could it be a Wednesday? Wednesdays.
But it's true. I've always...
Christmas.
Something that's always been poignant for me when you hear about these terrible accidents, and you think these people all got up like this morning, thinking they were going to have a normal day, and then it's gone. And if we could keep that sense that every moment of our life is a privilege and a blessing. You do not know. You could walk out, Russell, of this podcast.
Don't use me as an example.
I could be the last person you talk. No, but I'm saying,
you might be the last person I'll talk to.
You could choke on that.
I'm not talking to people anymore. They're natters.
No, but
And suddenly there they are, your shoes, the shoes you put on. Suddenly there they are, your shoes disembodied, put to one side. Those shoes that were full of hope, so many journeys unwalked. Now you a corpse, yellowing nails, suddenly in the ground, ritual and song and emptiness, hollowness, those shoes and the hope
really
embodied in those shoes.
I wore black today. I was getting miserable.
I'm making it up.
But talking about, I have had the privilege, because I worked for 2 years in a hospice before I went to university.
Jumper, a swan? Or
no, it's a crying angel, which I believe is...
You're saying I'm morbid. You turn up here with crying angels.
I was a goth, wasn't I? Predictably.
Of course you were a goth.
But,
Of course you were a goth.
Yeah, but what was I saying now? I had the privilege of working for 2 years in a hospice before I went to university and sitting with people when they were dying. And, that actually probably informed my work more than anything. Seeing the spirit leave the body.
How do you mean?
Because of what people say before they die. And one thing I learned is they never regret what they did. You will regret nothing you did in your life. You will regret what you didn't do. That's the biggest lesson I learned.
Why didn't I strangle more cats?
Maybe. I love cats. Actually, one of my books is called Psychic Cats, so be careful. Penguin. Not my finest hour, but...
Psychic cats, they do. Not my finest hour.
But when
That's
you see,
good.
this led me to my firm belief in an afterlife. Things that I saw, people becoming very lucid before death, what they say. Sometimes they see relatives around the deathbed, hearing about near-death experiences, which is another whole realm. I've written books about near-death experiences. Well, people who've had near-death experiences, I've interviewed probably several hundred now and have had letters about it. And I've also met Ibn Alexander, who is a famous near-death experiencer, Anita Morjani, a beautiful lady who had a near-death experience. And they come back from this realm of the other side when they were clinically dead, brain dead, heart dead, and they saw something and they glimpsed a realm. They glimpsed basically a feeling of what you talk about, of interconnectedness and what they also talk about is that they experience every way that they impacted other people in their lives, which I think is very awesome thought. So we could be creating the kind of afterlife we experience right now. Every interaction you have and the impact you have on the people around you, you will feel it. So that's why people often say is there punishment on the other side if somebody's been a serial killer or something like that. There isn't punishment as such, there's learning. So when they go to the other side, if they haven't had punishment in this life, they will experience what suffering they caused others to learn empathy for others, because that's what they lack, people who are very cruel. But what they talk about is meeting departed loved ones, a feeling of connectedness and all-knowingness. They have a life review. They go through a tunnel, typically. Near-death experiences are actually where afterlife research is currently really exciting. We have Dr. Samparnia in 2014 published a study which showed that consciousness can survive bodily death potentially by about 3 minutes. And the interesting thing about Dr. Samparnia, he doesn't actually believe...
How are they evaluating consciousness, electromagnetic energy in the brain?
Brain dead. Completely brain dead and heart dead. But I know because my mother, as I said, she attempted suicide. She had a near-death experience herself, so I was very familiar with that. She would tell me that she was above her body and she could see them pumping her stomach. She could see that. And I've had so many stories of people who have that experience. But most of the people who've had these experiences are worried that people think they're crazy and they've suppressed it. And I've been kind of a repository to collect these experiences and put them in books. But also you've got to understand that the reason we're hearing so much about near-death experiences now is resuscitation techniques have improved so much. Because 50 years ago, these people have died and taken their golden stories with them. And now we're getting so many people talking about that they have died and they've glimpsed heaven. They've seen the other side and they come back. And for me, there are all these arguments. Is it hallucination? Well, hallucinations tend to be very random and depleting. So when people have hallucinations, they don't tend to feel really happy afterwards. People who have near-death experiences, in 98% cases, they feel totally energized and like a new life, and they typically change their life completely. I mean, Anita Morjani, she was riddled with cancer. She had a near-death experience and she came back. The cancer was cured. And she now goes around the country talking about her experience of her time in heaven and what it taught her about this life. I think near-death experiences can give us powerful lessons about what really matters in this life. And what I've learned, I've collated all these research and found categories and themes in all of them that are similar, regardless of culture, regardless of religion. Most fascinating are atheists who've had this happen to them, who have it has completely transformed their belief in the possibility of an afterlife.
What has there been in common then? Is there a sort of an archetypal near-death experience, and could you describe
Typically,
it?
there's a separation from the body, an out-of-body experience, which you can have separate from a near-death experience, and then there's always a drawing towards the light. I mean, it is a bit like the film Ghost, Patrick Swayze, but that film is a reason, the love inside, you take it with me.
Consciousness, the film
The love
Ghost.
Inside. You take it with me. Isn't that beautiful?
It's a lovely idea.
I'm not crying.
Don't make yourself cry with bloody Ghost.
No. Well, lots of people cry.
Your son's out there. He's got his head in his hands because
he's had his head in his hand all his life with me.
That poor boy has spent his whole life.
Apart from today, when he offered to drive me.
God knows how he's learned how to play the piano. He's been covering his face.
No, I'm a big embarrassment. It's funny because
you're a lovely mum.
No. But anyway, what I was saying. Anyway, through a tunnel.
We were getting into a lovely archetypical definition, and then you sidelined off into Ghost and nearly crying.
I know. Sorry, anyway, but I'm saying these themes, there's a reason.
The tunnel of light.
The tunnel of light. You go through a tunnel of light and you're met by spirits, angels, departed loved ones. Some near-death experiences I've found that people are met by people they don't know have died. And then they come back from their near-death experience and talk about what's happened. And they didn't actually know that the people they've met in the tunnel of light have actually died. And that's kind of...
How do you mean? Well, you wouldn't know...
Well, somebody that you knew from your childhood, for example, that you met and you have lost touch with.
Glenn Dainty.
Yeah, I mean...
What are you doing in this tunnel of light? And you cheated at sports day. Those would be my 2 announcements. So...
I haven't finished my tunnel.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Sorry, and then you have a life review where you see your life in reverse, which is all the concept of time being backwards in spirit. There is no concept of time in spirit. We try to tend to think of the afterlife and the other side in human terms, and that really annoys me about our movement. And it become materialistic spiritualists. You almost get that they have they put human values on the other side.
Yeah, no, but I felt that a little bit when you said if you were a psychopath who killed loads of people that you would have lessons in empathy in the afterlife. I thought that was the imposition of a rather humanistic understanding of sort of evil, because sometimes I don't know, but it feels to me like when people transgress against our human codes that usually they've been cultivated in a particular way that it's hard to in a sense I'm believing less and less in individual culpability, because I feel people are so much a consequence of their environment, and it's almost like a malfunction within the unit of humanity somewhat. But go on, carry on with that thing.
But I'm just reporting, because I haven't had a near-death experience myself, what I've seen from the people who've written to me and the research that I've done, and the research that is going on in the University of Southampton, I believe, into near-death studies.
Good place to do it.
And it's also
if you find yourself there.
It's in New York.
It'd be a relief. It's a joke about Southampton. It's a nice place.
But there's also it's in combination with universities all over the world, not universities, research centres all over the world and hospitals, and they're doing several thousand studies now. Because the reason they started this study is that Sam Parnier, who pioneered a lot of resuscitation techniques, he was noticing that people were coming back with these stories and they're all so similar. And he just thought, this is data and I'm going to record it. As I said, he doesn't actually believe in afterlife. He thinks that there's some medical explanation.
I like the sounds of old Sam Parnier, pioneer. I don't believe in this, but here it is.
Yeah, but he said, you've got to study it. What's happening here?
Teresa, what do you think about ayahuasca and DMT, like powerful hallucinogens? A lot of people describe experiences that are not unlike what you're talking about. They say they pass through a domed area, then they meet sort of machine elves and pixies and stuff like that.
Yeah, but there's
frankly brilliant.
It does. Yes, psychedelics. Yeah, that's another thing.
Have you been taking them this morning?
No, never touched them. Never touched any of them. Any of those all my life. Never.
Do you have sort of a lucid inner experience?
I get high from life, really.
You're high off it.
I've never drunk, and when I have taken drugs, people at university.
You listening to this, Robbie?
But it didn't do anything to me.
Teresa's son's outside watching.
I've got a square head. I didn't do anything.
What do you mean you got a square head?
Because I think I get high.
So taken drugs just now.
I get high from life, from looking at a leaf. I know this sounds silly, from a sunset, a sunrise. That's
I know what you mean, and that's a sense of wonder that we should travel through life with. Only this morning I saw a horse and I thought, well, if I didn't already have a previous understanding of horses, I would think, my God, look at that thing. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. It's only that we've sort of trained ourselves to look at stuff as ordinary and sort of redundant and mundane. this person that taught me to meditate, like I've said, sometimes in my meditative experience, I feel like I'm encountering consciousness that is impersonal, different beings and stuff. And he went, well, look around, everything's amazing. Look at these trees. What are you really interested in? Novelty? Just novelty, just a new thing. Oh, look, there's a spirit, a ghost, a dragon. Who cares? You know, if there is no limit on reality, structures such as time are clearly impositions due to the limitations of our human experience and our understanding of entropy and atrophy, that things fall apart, that the world is the universe is expanding, and the tendency of material is sort of a kind of deterioration. But our reading of reality cannot be a total reading of reality, and there's clearly intersections between realms. There are clearly moments where information travels in ways that are outside of our prescribed understanding of reality.
That's all I want to put on the map. I'm not asking people to believe. I'm just asking them to open to their mind to the possibility this could have something to it. That's all I've ever asked. Just open your mind that there could be magic.
And stop being cruel to animals. That's two things. There could be magic, and stop being cruel to animals. That's two things you've asked for. Let's go through some, make sure that we've got, that we discussed enough stuff, because guess how long we've been talking? 1 hour. Do you believe that?
No, time flies, doesn't it? But there is time is an illusion.
I know.
Yes.
You don't need to. Don't use time is an illusion. Me. Our time is an illusion. You.
I know. You're very evolved.
you're so lovely. I love your mum
path.
element, because you're a bit like, yes, dear. Yes, Russell. You're very important. So right, let's have a look. Right. You'll like this. Are most people in the medium and clairvoyance trade faking it just to make money if precognition is not something we don't know how to fully harness yet?
I'm going to cause a lot of pain here and say yes.
You think there are a lot of hucksters and charlatans?
I have been around this all my life.
And there's a lot of...
and I would have been guilty of... when I wanted to make money when I was at uni, I would do tarot card readings and astrology. And it was basically encyclopedic knowledge, because I've got a bit of photographic memory and I can remember things very quickly. And, it's very easy to do they're all archetypes, the tarots.
Oh.
And what I found then was this eagerness to believe, and that's what worried me.
I'm dying to believe.
Yeah. But that's worrying, because then if you follow the wrong person... it's great if people follow you, because what you're saying is beautiful. But what about if you follow people who have got, anyway.
Bad intentions, crafty buggers, slippery eels.
And so I have never ever claimed to have those powers in my
Hold on, so what were you doing on Russian X Factor for psychics then?
I wasn't on...
You said that you went to Russia to be on X Factor for psychics.
Russell, you quote me. One of my super fans flew me over, but having read one of my books.
I like this woman.
Yes.
Theresa Cheung. You'll get her here.
Yes, it was
basically. Of course.
Well, I do have a lot of my books, because the paranormal obviously is not so much here in the UK, but overseas. I have a big readership about what I write about, because I bring some academic credibility to it, I hope, because you've got to realise in my field, I have had the blessing somehow of going to Cambridge. I don't know how it happened.
Oh yeah, let's not forget that. You've done theology at King's College.
So it gives a kind of a credibility.
What is theology? Like the study of various scriptures?
Yes.
It's
a study of the Bible, the Old Testament,
mostly
the New Testament. You learn Can
you have a look at the Quran or?
Yes, you do. You can choose within that. It's basically religion. It's what you're studying now.
Oh yeah.
And absolutely loved it. But what it did is it actually, in a way, it stopped me wanting to go into the church.
Why?
Because I just found that I couldn't say that Christ was the only path when all these other religions are so beautiful too.
Yeah, I wonder what Jesus would have thought about that. He would have...
I did want to be the first female vicar.
You wanted to be the first?
I did.
You would have been a good female vicar. It's not too late. We'll just start a church that's a bit more expansive.
I couldn't preach something I don't believe. I have to be authentic in what I'm doing. And when I lost my faith, in a way, not in Christianity as such, I still believe Christianity is beautiful.
It's good, isn't it?
Well, if you harm no one, right,
yeah,
and it makes you happy,
people.
Religion's great. But for me, I kind of stepped outside of religion and saw that all religions are paths to something spiritual and beautiful.
And in a way, all of us need to create our own individual religion.
Yes. And take bits from each religion. I take bits from each religion to create my own. Maybe Chungism will be born one day. And I say, well, you have your own religion. Take bits from each religion that work for you and make you feel happy and content.
And leave the bits you don't like out.
Yes.
Well, I didn't like that bit. That was a bit misogynistic. Well, don't do that then.
We're born alone.
This bit's homophobic. Yeah, don't do that.
We're born alone and we die alone, and you find your own...
What? You said there was going to be a tunnel of light and I was going to see people from sports day.
No,
I want a tunnel of light.
You find your own path to heaven. And anyway, back to Russia. I went there because my fans are very passionate. I hate that word fans. They're not my readers.
It? No one's making you.
Readers. My readers are passionate about wanting to know the meaning of life and everything. And although it is quite funny because my name's Theresa Cheung, and I think
I like that name, Theresa Cheung.
Well, there is a very famous porn star, I think, in China.
Well, that might be it.
And
no, yeah.
I sometimes get mail for her, and it's a misunderstanding of the meaning word heaven.
Where do you live? 1920? Why do I'm writing you letters? Why people on the internet?
Messages. No, this is 10 years ago when I was first out there. It was very funny. I think, imagine...
Dear Theresa Cheung, I enjoyed your latest bra video. How's she going to cope? Teresa, will you help me transcend to the next dimension, please?
But can you imagine the disappointment?
Here's a picture of me in the nut.
Imagine the disappointment when they order one of my books, An Angel Called My Name, and, it's not quite what they hoped. Yeah,
because a porn film called An Angel Called My Name.
But anyway, that's just an aside. I do.
It's disgusting.
The reason I was there is that overseas there is a lot more interest in the paranormal than there is right here, right now. But you were going back to the fraud thing, and so what I did is I made it my mission to try and find people who I felt were the real deal. So I went to the grassroots, to people on the front lines who are not doing it for money.
Who are these people?
People who just do it because it's a calling. And I did find someone for one book I recently wrote called Claire Broad, who's a professional medium, and I've championed her fiercely because I spied on them. I went to
spied on them?
No, I went to some of her demonstrations, and you've got to remember.
Spying?
There's a whole
What did you wear?
Black.
Did you have a hat on?
There's a whole network of spiritualist churches around the UK. Where twice a week, 3 times a week, they have demonstrations of mediumship. Now, this all sounds very medieval, but it's not. It's actually beautiful. What they're trying to do for the people come is give proof of survival that some aspect of a person's spirit has gone on after death.
Which is nice, yeah. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Guess what I went to? Like, in America once, I went to, it was in Inglewood, and everyone else there was African American. So, and there was a bit where you had to come up the front, and the preacher was like, I'm going to heal you, and all that. I thought, I'll have a bit of this. So I went up the front, and like he said, and all the women that had been before me, he was pushing them, and they were going down on the ground, and their eyes were going back in their head, and they were rolling about. He gave me a push. I didn't feel nothing. It was just the same as being me usually, except someone was pushing me in the head. And then he looked at me a bit like, come on, mate, do us a favour. So I went,
But didn't you feel there was a part of you that wanted to go along with it?
Totally, I did
show?
go along with it because I didn't want to ruin the vibe.
See, that's what I say, that why there are so many frauds in this business. There's no regulation. And again, that's what the last 5 years I've made it my life's work to work with scientists to try and get some scientific credentials into this so that somebody can have a certificate saying I'm scientifically validated at what I do.
Like they've passed that test on the internet where they've judged the pictures correctly. They've shown at least that they can predict what's coming up.
And it's not within the realms of impossibility because the grief model at the moment, how people are getting grief therapy, isn't working. People don't want to move on. They want to have a spiritual connection with somebody who's departed.
Right.
And a good medium, and you've got to remember, some of these mediums train 20 years. It's not easy. Typically,
Matt Claire Broad, why did you think she was good then? What did she do? You think she can talk to
number of
people
reasons.
in other dimensions?
She is very happy person. She has a happily married mother of 2. She had a very lucrative career at an advertising agency. She has no reason to do this. Absolutely no reason to go to the churches. She's not insane either. If you talk to her, she's really, really grounded.
That's the best thing you could say. She's not insane.
Well, she's not. She's not mad. And I went.
That can be on the certificate. Not insane. No, but do you mean that? But Teresa, did you experience her doing stuff that was pretty magic?
Yes, I did. And I thought,
like?
Well, for example, she was able to say somebody had the name of somebody who'd passed in spirit and what they died of, and how many brothers they had.
With
somebody
you?
Was adopted. Not with me. No, I think. No, you don't get. But what she did, what I saw is that the whole room was getting comfort. And for me, if you're getting comfort and a feeling that maybe there's a possibility of a spiritual connection ongoing after death, which is basically Christianity, isn't it? Christ died, he was born again. That's basically mediumship, isn't it? He lives in everybody's hearts.
But don't you think that what that symbol means is that the material flesh man must die and become the spiritual man in order that you can connect to ulterior and sublime realities? Be born again. Be born again unto yourself, moment to moment. The you that you used to be is dead. You are no longer that person, that you are born again. born again.
Well,
Otherwise, what is it like? Them people, that tribe, you said that if they sleep for more than 15 minutes, they've got to get a new name.
If you think of yourself,
Basil, that's you, by the way. You've been asleep since 5.
That's what I try to say about life after death. You think of yourself as a 10-year-old boy. You were alive then, but that boy's
sweet
died.
Little kid.
Yeah, but it's gone. That boy.
Oh, come on, let's get him back.
No, but I know, but he's gone. But you're still here. You've carried on. And that's what death is. It's just the final shedding of the body where you'll still carry on. The you that is you, that was you through all the stages of your life, will carry on.
Do you think that there is a sort of a place? Do you think there's a space for this self, for this transcendent self?
Yes, in some invisible, magical realm. Yes, I do. I do.
Are you going to be all right?
Yes, it will be. But the thing is, people think that it's paradise and you just stop. That's a common misconception. All the people who have had afterlife visions or travelled to the other side and near-death experience say it's very busy on the other side. And often our departed loved ones don't contact us because they're busy. There's a lot to do over there. The evolution is eternal. And for people who struggle with that, the scientists, the skeptics, I say we all accept that space is eternal, right? That's just taught in schools. It never ends. How do we know? And why can't our spirits also be eternal, just like space? You know, science is constantly throwing things in our faces that we can't actually prove, because they say you can't prove life after death. You can't prove. How do we know space doesn't end? It might just stop, might be a brick wall, you know. Send you back again. I don't know.
Talk to me more about this Psychic Cats book of yours.
Oh yes, actually, oh God, that bombed. But it was annoying because it was Penguin books as well, and you know.
Your new publisher's out there. She looks as upset as your son.
Lindsay Mayhew. She's my books for me for publicity. She's brilliant. She's very wise. But no.
It's a shame because that was a Penguin book.
It's not every author's dream. Author's dream. But I wanted to write about big, powerful things, and they put me, because I'm a woman of a certain age.
What do you mean by that?
Probably own 6 cats. You know that they put. You think that's
you're
the
in
audience.
The nutter category.
Yes, and I hope people don't think I'm nuts, or they probably will.
Some people will,
yes,
of course.
Yes, of course.
Of course they will. Of course they will. That's the risk, isn't it, of talking about stuff that's unconventional, or at least, you know, there are some conventions, but like stuff that's not material. For
the people that write to me, and the beautiful people who write to me.
Not including those ones that are accidentally writing to you, who actually meant to speak to Theresa Cheung, the porn star.
I mean, 10 years ago when I had my Sunday Times, I got mail bags this big of people who have had paranormal experiences. And a lot of them said, I've never told anyone this before. I'm not mad. This happened to me, and it's made me rethink my life. Something is either a coincidence, an angel sighting, a dream that came true, an afterlife encounter, an afterlife vision, all these things that have made them think there's something more to this life than meets the eye.
How could there not be something more? How could there not be?
Exactly, we don't know why we're here.
That we perceive all reality, all of it. That, you know, people used to think that in medieval times, and then we went, oh no. First of all, oh right, okay, so the Earth goes around the sun. Oh, okay, space is limitless. Oh, okay, there are smaller and smaller particles and molecules. Oh, there's invisible energies that are holding things together. In the physical realm, in the world that we can double-blind test, there are constant discoveries and incremental learning, and it will be the same in all fields of understanding, especially those for which we lack the conventional instruments, the sensory instruments, where there are spectrums unknown.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that infinite possibility is what I always talk about. And I think one day, actually, we might even be able to download human consciousness. I mean, I think we could get to that state, you know, looking way ahead. That it might even
in a way we already have done, haven't we? I mean, how did our consciousness get into our bodies? How's it got in here, Teresa? Where has it come from? Where is it going?
Well, that spark. What is life? What's that spark? And like, what is death? Death is a miracle as well, because it's a cycle of rebirth. And having, as I said, watched people pass, it's like a light goes out, and what's left is the body is just clothes. It's like it's just a coat that somebody was wearing, and you know some part of them has gone on.
Well, listen, I think you're a really lovely woman. I'm very grateful for your time. I feel a bit tripped out. Do you?
Yes, it's I can see I'm going to get criticism, but hey.
What do you mean? Who from?
Oh, when you write about the paranormal, you're always going to get.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You get criticism if you wrote about cricket or mice. You know,
exactly.
People are always criticising everything.
Or psychic cats, yeah.
Well, yeah, that I think is some deserved criticism there. I don't know what you.
But I'm a dog. I have a dog now.
Thinking. Right. Well, write a book about wise dogs. The canine wisdom. Advice from dogs.
Well, dogs give you a love. I mean, the thing is with dogs,
I love my dog.
They love you whatever you are. It's unconditional love. I mean, that's for me the definition of heaven, unconditional love. And in some ways we get it through our animals. And I actually think when people do bond with dogs that maybe they've given up with their own species. And I don't know, but it's like you have a validation from a pet and an animal that is truly beautiful.
I think you'd be good agony aunt.
I am. That's what
why
I do.
These people keep writing these bloody letters.
Well, I
from 1950.
I got a young readership now, honestly.
Go
and
on.
Of course, with my dalliance with the Church of Jediism, I tried to help the Jedi Knights write a book.
I saw this. It's in the research. I didn't bring it up because I was trying to usher the conversation into areas of
more grounded, yes.
Exactly.
But
I thought, don't bring up bloody Luke Skywalker.
Well, no, the Force, isn't it what you talk about?
I understand the metaphor.
And everybody says I'm a Jedi. I'm not a Jedi. I haven't actually watched all the Star Wars films.
God, that's like a Christian who's not read the Bible.
Exactly. But I wanted to help them have a book and they weren't in a position to do it. And luckily I'm in a position to go to publishers and say, hey, give them a chance.
Give them a Jedi book.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went on to Piers Morgan, didn't we? And
how was that?
Oh, he's got a closed mind, hasn't he?
I think possibly.
But it was fun. But what was good is he started to have a lightsaber battle. And as I said, religion should make people come alive. And why is religion so dreary? And spirituality can sometimes be so dreary. Yeah. It should be happy.
It should be a right laugh, should it?
Yes. And that's what the Jedi Knights do. It's fun. Who doesn't want to be a Jedi Knight?
Yeah, you're right. Well, Darth Vader.
True, he's the dark side of the Force, which we need.
That was a test to see if you've even picked up the basics.
We need the dark side of the Force, though. Just as we need day and we need night.
We need them. We need Darth Vader. Without Darth Vader, how would Luke be tested?
Well, it's like a woman screams in childbirth before the child's born. There's pain, and then there's, that's...
My wife didn't. She said like golly and things like that.
Did she?
It was astonishing.
Were you doing meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah, she told me to shut up. I was chanting. I was like, oh, Hare Krishna, all this stuff. She was like, shut up. That was the only impolite thing she said during the labour of two little daughters.
Oh.
Teresa, thank you so much for your time and for your bold and innocent optimism and for bringing love and joy into the world.
I try, which is what all we can do, isn't it?
Thanks for watching this podcast and going all the way to the end of it. Would you so kind as to click the bell? Might not be there, could be over there. And subscribing so that we can infiltrate your serenity and peace of mind with jangling bells and buzzes. Thank you.